Parliamentary primaries are conducted within political parties to determine or select their candidates to contest the next parliamentary election. The right to vote in the primaries is often given to a specified group of members, or it may also be open to all card-bearing members in good standing. Properly conducted parliamentary primaries create the opportunity for party members to have a say in who becomes the candidates, help build cordial relations between party leaders and the party rank and file, and even makes parties attractive to sympathizers as well as floating voters. Primaries are also a means by which parties demonstrate their internal democratic credentials. However, the guidelines for the parliamentary parties are not adhered to, particularly if it is manipulated by the party leaders. It can lead to intra-party conflicts, which may result in the defeat of a party in the general election. The biggest challenge that confronts a ruling party ahead of the next election is the rush of aspirants to contest on the ticket of the party. This surge of aspirants may occur even in seats where the party previously had difficulty in attracting candidates, but it is much more intense where the party has sitting MPs. Indeed, Ghana had a history when in 1954, over 1,000 aspirants emerged to contest the 104 parliamentary seats on the ticket of the ruling CPP. And in the Fourth Republic, NDC and the NPP had at various times been confronted with the challenge. This is always a delicate issue, and if not carefully managed, can reduce the electoral fortunes of the incumbent party. Another challenge for the incumbent party is the timing of its primaries, such that it does not disrupt the support of the incumbent MPs for parliamentary policies in Parliament. This has often led to a two-pronged approach where the primaries for the orphan seats are held earlier and those with incumbent MPs later. The incumbent MPP, ahead of the 2020 elections, conducted relatively peaceful primaries in 2009, 2019 for the 106 orphan seats, but several controversies surrounded the primaries in the 169 seats with incumbent MPs. Primaries, which were initially scheduled for January 2020, was postponed to April and overtaken by COVID-19, belatedly held in June, just 6 months to the elections. There were massive disqualifications, and the perception of protecting incumbents prevailed. In the Eastern region alone, as many as 15 aspirants were disqualified, and in fact, in one instance, 4 aspirants were all dropped, leaving only the incumbent MP. In the end, nearly 70 incumbents were declared unopposed, most of them after the disqualification. For example, in the Eastern region, originally there were 5 unopposed MPs, but it ended up to 12 after the vetting. In the 100 or so constituencies where there were contested primaries, as many as 40, including several high-profile incumbents, were defeated. And this, in fact, emboldened some of the disqualified candidates to go independent in protest. In the Ashanti region, for example, there were as many as 20 of such protesters. Outcome of the 2020 parliamentary elections clearly shows how the primaries negatively impacted on the performance of the NPP. It entered the election with 169 seats, but returned with only 137, a dip of as many as 32 seats. One of the independent protesters, who in fact was an incumbent MP, was elected as an independent candidate. Then several of the unopposed incumbents were either defeated or elected with their votes significantly dipped, sometimes up to 20%. Clearly, the ruling NPP towards 2024 had learned some lessons from 2020, and that is what culminated in the decision of the National Executive Council, indicating that it will not grant special dispensation to incumbents, and also to ensure that reduced candidates were reduced to the barest minimum. It is therefore gratifying to know that nationwide, only 11 of the almost 400 aspirants were disqualified, when in fact in 2020, Eastern region alone had 12. Then in terms of unopposed candidates, the number has reduced from 70 to 29. And the good thing is that in this instance, several of them were those who were not formally challenged in their constituencies, rather than those who became unopposed after disqualification of their contenders. Of 18 incumbents who have opted not to seek a second term. The number 18 is in fact thrice as much as the 6 which did so in 2020. Also, several of the outgoing incumbents were long-term MPs who have served 3 terms or more. That is about 12 of them. And the other 6 have served at least 2 terms. So definitely, it covers an important crop of MPs, experienced MPs who are not coming back. Several of them were also high profile, including a majority leader, 2 speakers, former and current, former ministers and deputy ministers, as well as current ones, a former general secretary. So these people, their experience will be very much missed in the coming parliament. On the other hand, we should also remember that several of those not contesting again were among the unopposed candidates for 2020, and for some of whom their votes dipped heavily. In this respect, it is gratifying that the competition which is going on in their constituencies has reinvigorated the party at the grassroots level. However, let me draw attention to the fact that some of the outgoing MPs have publicly declared their support for one candidate or the other. And that is an emergent challenge, because the question arises, what happens if those particular candidates do not win the primaries? By way of final comments, I would say that the January 27 NPP primaries should be free, fair, and peaceful. For what the party needs most is a post-primary unity. It is therefore important that winners must be magnanimous in victory, to celebrate in moderation, and find ways of involving their losing opponents. On their part, the losers must be gracious in defeat, let go in the hope that there will be future successes, and be prepared to support the winners as much as they possibly can. It is important for both sides, winners and losers, to remember that there is a bigger opponent to fight in the national elections. And also be conscious of the fact that if there are any intra-party conflicts, it will be blown out of proportion by their opponents in the national election.